أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to the scholars. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The show that looks at great scholars that have inspired us today inshallah and always with their books, within stories from their lives, within their works and their studies. I am delighted once again to be joined by His Eminence Ayatollah Dr. Sayyid Fadl Al-Minani. On your behalf, I welcome him. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyidina. Thank you once again for joining us in this show, The Scholars. Today's episode, inshallah, we will look at Allamah al Hilli, the great Sheikh, the supporter of religion, Jamal al-Din Abu Mansur Hassan ibn Yusuf, known as Allamah al Hilli, born on the 19th of Ramadan in the year 648 after Hijrah. This great scholar, this very well-versed scholar, researcher, this trustworthy jurisprudent theologian who today we benefit from his work, who many scholars say that he is the only one that deserves this title of Al-Allama. Sayyidina, if you can introduce Al-Allama al Hilli to our dear viewers, inshallah.
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There is a lot to talk about Al-Allama al Hilli in 3 or 4 different angles. One is about how young he was when he got this ability to learn, especially first under his father, then his maternal uncle, Al-Muhaqqiq al-Hilli, the author of Sharia al-Islam. And later on, he became so fluent and so great in every part of the Islamic studies. He has written in theology 3-4 different books, and each one has its own methodology. He wrote in jurisprudence, again, 3 different encyclopedias, and each one has its own pattern and own methodology. He wrote about many other things, but what was very, very important about him, that as young, he reached the level of ijtihad. It has been said in his biography that when he was only 13 years old, he had the ability of deducing law from its sources, Sharia, from the main sources, and being able to memorize all, for example, 500 ayat of the Ayatul Ahkam, the verses in the Quran which talk about the rulings. In addition to that, of course, we see one very important thing happened to him, and this led to a big turning point in Iran about Shiism. Before Allamah Hilli, and let's go back a bit to the Ilkhanid king Al-Jaito or Jaito. Jaito, it is written in his biography that in the year 694 AH, he embraced Islam. Before he was Christian, then moved to Buddhism, Yep. But in the year 694, he turned into Islam. And he was known to be followers of Ahlul Sunnah. But what happened that he turned to Shiism. And this was the main reason that Shiism was spread out in Iran from his time. We can, with full confidence say that Iran before Allamah Hilli and before Al-Jaito, the Ilkhani king, they were the overwhelming majority were Sunnis. And they say about that reason why he turned into Shiism, and that was because of Allamah Hilli. To have this strong ability to make a king turning from one madhab to another, again, it is something to be admired. The story is this, that whilst Al-Jayto was angry. He divorced his wife, the queen. And according to the Shafi'i madhab, yeah, even when a man is angry, okay, that pronunciation of the statement of divorce, you are divorced, you are divorced, you are divorced, okay, is acceptable, and this is based on practice of some companions. Whilst in Shia, it is not acceptable because, first of all, even if someone repeats that for 3 times, for 10 times, it is counted as one.
Yes.
The interval between the first divorce, if happens, then reconciliation, the second divorce, the again interval of some sort of reconciliation. If this happens for the 3rd time, then the ayah of the Quran, الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان, applies there. This one thing. The second thing is that with the Shia school of thought, that at the time of pronouncing the statement of divorce, the two reliable witnesses must be there. And this is clearly in the Quran. Quran, Surah number 65, ayah number 2 says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَشْهِدُوا ذَوَيْ عَدْلٍ مِنْكُمْ. Take witness of 2 most reliable people who are practicing Islam. And the philosophy behind that is that these reliable witnesses are good enough to reconcile or stop the person from, being angry and deciding at once, she are divorced. And the third point is that state of anger itself. If someone is seen that his blood is boiling and he's nervous or react in a way that he will regret it later. Because Imam Ali alayhi salam said that anger is a type of madness. Why? Because later on, the person who acted in an angry way will regret it. And Imam alayhi salam, knows that it might be some people, even they don't regret it. So that if they don't regret it, it means that they are very, very mad. Because the person who is reasonable, at least anything wrong happen to him, he regrets and says, and I would have been patient and not keep calm without doing it. So he consulted the Sunni fuqaha, and they said, there is no way. Yes, he divorced her, full stop. And somebody told the Il-Khanid king, Al-Jayto, sometimes it's called Khuda Bande, yeah? Yeah. Or Khair Banda, whatever, pronunciation about it.
Servant of God.
Yeah. So this means that, yes, he was advised that there is a Shia scholar, and he was summoned. He was, his advice was sought, and in that meeting, he managed to convince even the scholars, the Hanafis, Shafi'is, Malikis, and Hanbalis about the strength and the logical way of the Ja'fari school. That's why he turned into Shia. Later on, he managed to bring all facilities to, make this the official madhab in Iran. Yes.
Thank you very much. Sayyidina, as mentioned, his main teachers were his father, Yusuf al Hilli, and his maternal uncle, Muhaqqiq al Hilli. Of course, the title Hilli is because of his birth in the city of Hilla.
We have 2 things here. That according to Shia seminaries, it was first the school of Hilla, Baghdad, then the school of Hilla, then the school of Najaf, and later on Karbala and Tripoli and Aleppo. These are, historically, the main, the school of Qom is very young, but those schools, Hilla, because they were great scholars like Allamah al Hilli, his father, his maternal, and we see Sayyid ibn Tawus, both of them, Radi al-Din and Jamal al-Din, again were he teachers, yeah?
Teachers, yeah.
And these greats all were in the city of Hilla, which is approximately 65 kilometers away from Karbala, some 111 kilometers away from Najaf. Yes. So, but because they lived there and buried there, yeah, that's why known as Hilli.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. He himself, Allamah al Hilli, writes in the year 693 that he has managed to write 64 books thus far. And this, I'm guessing, he's around in the age of 40, 45. And he adds that most are not complete. And he asks Allah that he gets tawfiq, he gets the success to complete the books that he has written. He wrote in fiqh, usul al-fiqh, theology, hadith, rijal, and tafsir of the Quran, as well as mantiq and other Arabic literature, as well as poetry, as some historians say that they found some of his work and it also had poetry in it. So he was a great scholar in all sciences and all knowledges. Before we look at the work, I wanted to look at also the time in which Allamah al Hilli lived, because from my understanding that the government was following the Shia sect, and in fact in the year 708 there are coins that have the names of the 12 imams from that government.
Yeah, some coins were there and some other coins were in Bahrain and Ad-Dawla al-Uyuniyya, which refer to some sort of habit of the coinage there to carry the names of Imam Ali alayhi salam in addition to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or Allah Muhammad Ali, or some other patterns there. One thing again was important at the time of Allamah al Hilli and his father, that when the Holoko and the Mongols came from far east and they demolished everything in their way, they destroyed every culture in their way, okay? Burnt libraries and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And they reached to Baghdad, and they were on their way to come to Najaf and Karbala. It was the wisdom of Allamah Hilli's father and Sayyid ibn Tawus that they managed to convince Holoko from coming further and to stop and don't reach Najaf and Karbala to support the shrines of our imams there. Of course, here we remember two things. One, that there was a discussion, very logical, between Allamah Hilli and Ibn Taymiyyah. They were contemporary.
Yep.
Allamah Hilli died in the year 726 AH. Ibn Taymiyyah died in the year 728. So they were contemporary. And when Allamah Hilli wrote Minhajul Karama fi Ilm al-Imama, Ibn Taymiyyah wanted to criticize that, and he wrote Minhaj al-Sunnah. So Minhaj al-Sunnah of Ibn Taymiyyah declares and presents the opinion of the Ash'arites regarding Imamah, where they say that, there is no necessity for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to appoint any caliph, anyone to run the divine leadership within the community. And that was what we see in the works of Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, in addition to that, was literalist and sometimes considered to be the source for all Salafis and all extremists in Islam. Anyway, so both Minhaj al-Sunnah and Minhaj al-Karama were, arguing and analyzing the different camps of Islamic theology. But if you look at the manners of both, whilst Ibn Taymiyyah uses very, very bad language, slanders, and sometimes, uses, very offensive words about the personality of Allamah al Hilli. Allamah al Hilli was known as Al-Hasan ibn Yusuf ibn al-Mutahhar, because his grandfather was al-Mutahhar. And in the West, normally when they say Ibn al-Mutahhar, they refer to Allamah al Hilli.
Yep.
Right? So he, in many occasions, say that Ibn al-Munajjas. But it is impolite. It is not logical. If you have some sort of, for example, rejection to the words of somebody or to his doctrine, in no way you are allowed to offend them or use bad language. So whilst Allamah al Hilli was using the maximum and sticking to maximum, manner of politeness, okay? Ibn Taymiyyah was harsh in using very, very bad language. Anyway, but if you are fair enough and you have the ability to compare the both, you see how depth and strength was in the work of Allamah al Hilli. Some other thing with Allamah al Hilli is that he studied philosophy, logic, and mathematics under Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, known as Khaji Nasir. Whilst Nasir al-Din al-Tusi used to attend the teachings of jurisprudence under Allamah al Hilli. And this is again something amazing to see how humble and sincere people were. Okay, some people say that, okay, because he is my student, how should I go? Or
attend his class.
I belittle myself, I'm to go and study under him. But you see, both of them were so great and sincere. So when Nasir al-Din al-Tusi was teaching philosophy, and theology, kalam, and mathematics, Allamah al Hilli would attend his teachings. And when it was the terms of the courses that Allamah al Hilli was running for fiqh and Islamic jurisprudence, Nasir al-Din al-Tusi used to attend him. Nasir al-Din, again, was something very, very nice to remember about him. The teacher of Allamah al Hilli in one way and his student in another way, that he managed to build the first observatory in the world, in Maraghe, northwest Iran, and with the support to convince the Holokwa and his Mahul to finance and to support that. And it wasn't only observatory, it was even a school and academy there to teach and expand. So all these are evident and tell us about one thing, that even in difficult times, in crucial moments, in the time of wars and conflicts, one can devote his time to writing, to teaching, and to spreading knowledge.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. From my understanding is that after the time of Shaykh al-Ta'if, Shaykh al-Tusi, the scholars that came after Shaykh al-Tusi, their views did not conflict with the views of Shaykh al-Ta'if, Shaykh al-Tusi, and the first view to come out and conflict Shaykh al-Tusi's was by Allamah al Hilli, which continued the process of ijtihad, if that makes sense. How was this? How can we explain this?
I may amend a bit of this statements. First of all, we know that because of the greatness of Shaykh al-Tusi, approximately for 100 years, all who came after him, whether from his students or next generations, they dared not to challenge his opinions and his findings. And the first time it was Ibn Idris al Hilli, not Allamah al Hilli. Ibn Idris al Hilli, who died around the year 548, which was approximately 100 years after Shaykh al-Tusi. Shaykh al-Tusi died in year 460 AH. So 548, it was the time of Ibn Idris al-Hilli, the author of As-Sarair. And Sheikh Allamah al Hilli and his, for example, uncle, these were the people who came some 60, 70 years later, okay? So, because Allamah al Hilli was born in 648, he died in 726. So it was approximately, a century and a half between them, to see, or 2 centuries between them. Yeah. But if we compare the works of Allamah al Hilli, first of all, he worked very hard on the comparative studies. And he wrote 2 books in this way. One, to compare the opinions of Shia scholars from the beginning until his time, and called it Mukhtalaf al-Shia. Mukhtalaf al-Shia means that when the scholars, the Shia scholars, have a variety of opinions, he first mentioned them, that this scholar said this, that scholar said this, and then he tries to evaluate and give credit to one opinion over others. Whilst in his book, Tadhkirat al-Fuqaha, yeah, he tries to compare between the Shia on one hand and the 4 schools of Ahl-Sunnah, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Hanafi, and Maliki on the other hand, and try to reason why he chose the opinion of the Imamiyya and does not agree with what is said by some other schools when there is differences. In a third work, Muntaha al-Matlab, again he tries to use this ability and the pattern of making the comparative studies, whether within the madhab or between the madhab and other madhahib, with very, very logical debate, is something unique with Allamah al Hilli. And in theology, he wrote 3-4 different books in theology. It is good to know that in English, a PhD dissertation was written by Sabina Schmidtke, originally from Germany, and she passed that under the supervision of Professor Madelung in Oxford, and her work was very, very nice, called The Theology of Allamah al Hilli. She managed to analyze and discuss every single opinion of Allamah al Hilli within theology, aqaid or creed. And she traced every single handwritten book by Allamah al Hilli in different libraries, in different centers, which was very, very good work. But when you read it, for example, كشف المراد في شرح تجريد الاعتقاد. تجريد الاعتقاد is very concise book on theology by Nasir al-Din al-Tusi. But when you come to the commentary on that, كشف المراد في شرح تجريد الاعتقاد, okay, by Allamah al Hilli. And you see that there are some more books about Al-Bab al-Hadi Ashar, okay, which has been translated indeed with its comments and explanation into English, and was published in 1925 by some priest who was sent as missionary message to Mashhad, Iran. Yeah. The Asiatic Society has published that, and I have a copy of it. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that when you see Allamah al Hilli in his early days manages to write in variety of subjects, in Ilm al-Rijal, the authenticity and the credibility of the narrators of hadith, in theology, in many other branches of Islamic studies, and all of them are useful. All of them are offering the maximum knowledge to those who came after them.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. As mentioned by yourself, his arrival in Iran was very important and a milestone in his life. The exact date is not known as so much, but it is mentioned that it was after the year 705 after Hijrah when he visited Iran, and that's when the king who followed the Sunni school, we can say, converted to the Shia sect, and the Shia sect became what was governed in Iran then. And Allamah al Hilli stayed in Iran for many years to spread the Shia faith, and it is mentioned that he accompanied the king on his journeys as well, and the king would follow any suggestions from Al-Allama. Al-Allama al Hilli passed away in the city of Hilla in the year 726 in the month of Muharram, and his body was transferred to the holy city of Najaf,
which is exactly within the shrine of Imam Ali alayhi salam. I mean, not the big door, the smaller door when we want to, on the right when we want, and it is evident. There is a sign to say that this is the shrine of Allamah al Hilli. Yes.
Yes, a lot of people do not know this, of course, but when they do visit the shrine of Imam Ali, the commander of faithful in the holy city of Najaf, there are many great scholars that are buried in the actual shrine, whether it's outside near the courtyard, the likes of even as late as Ayatollah Sayyid al-Khou'i is buried in, for example, the shrine, and of course other great scholars, including Al-Allama al Hilli, who is buried, who has the honor of being buried next to the shrine of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he passed away at the age of 78, I believe. Yeah. Sayyidina, again, we end with, if we can take some lessons from, of course, there's many more points to mention about Allamah al Hilli, but if we can take some lessons from this great scholar that we can take today.
Yes, again, looking at Allamah al Hilli, that he was broad-minded person. He never restricted himself to one opinion, which meant to read, and this is a very good lesson for us. There are certain people, whether it is in Islam or in any branch or any field of study, they stick to certain area, but to widen the whatever, I mean, access to knowledge and to read about others. And this automatically leads to recognize others and to be fair to others and appreciate their works. But when it comes to support something and to endorse something, you have to use your own whatever methodology there, which is, again, it is very, very important. The other thing that we know about Allamah al Hilli here, that how sincere he was in accepting the aspiration and the wisdom from the path of Imamah. Whenever he was stuck somewhere, his communication with the Lord first and with the Imam of his time to guide him and to remove the curtains of ignorance or ambiguity from his side was so useful in getting some sort of insight and inner sight, which led him to achieve all that. So, in addition to whatever we do in the maximum of sincerity, we have to know that we need always the spiritual assistance from our Imams alayhi salam and from the Imam of the time, the 12th Imam Ajjalallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif. By doing so and considering ourselves as humble, as very humble servants of Islam, we manage to serve and to succeed.
Thank you very much, Sayyidina. Inshallah, we can take that lesson. I have met many or heard of many great scholars who at time of trouble or at time of help, they seek intercession from the Imam of their time, the awaited Savior, and they do tawassul with the Imam of of their time, whether it's after their prayers, usually during the night after Salat al-Layl, for example, they do this sincere tawassul with the Imam of their time, and we should take a lesson from this and ask ourselves, what is our relationship with our Imam? Is there any relationship, if any, with our Imam, or whether it's a title that we have for him, just he's there but we do not have a connection with the Imam of our time? We should question ourselves, and inshallah we can build a relationship, whether it's through one day a week attending Dua Nudba or reciting Dua Nudba, or whether it's reciting Dua al-Ahad every day, or whether it's even asking for tawassul from the Imam in your daily actions, studies, work. Inshallah we can build that relationship. Once again, I thank you for watching this show, and I would also like to take this opportunity to thank His Eminence Ayatollah Dr. Sayyid Fadl Al-Milani for once again enlightening us with great stories from these great scholars. Inshallah we can take examples from them, and inshallah you can keep us and Ayatollah Dr. Sayyid Fadl Al-Milani in your du'as. Inshallah we will see you in the next episode of The Scholars. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ahlulbayt TV, the holy household for every household.